Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy starts with Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, where he is bitten by one of the most iconic spiders in cinematic history. The spider in question? Officially unnamed, but known by fans as the Columbia University Super Spider. It's part of a cutting-edge exhibit at a university genetics lab. And more importantly, it's not just a freak accident. It's one of 15 genetically designed super spiders, created by researchers combining the DNA of 3 different spider species into a single organism. This fusion grants the spider a perfect storm of enhanced abilities: the proportional strength of a spider, superhuman reflexes, ultra-fast nerve conduction, aka spider sense, wall-crawling adhesion, and even the ability to produce organic webbing from spinnerets in its forearms, a trait that's rare among spider heroes. Peter is bitten during a high school field trip, and it's one of those cinematic moments that just changed everything. He stumbles home sick, collapses into bed, and when he wakes up, his vision is crystal clear, his body is transformed, and he's suddenly sticking to walls. What makes this origin so iconic is how it bridges comic book legacy with movie realism. Raimi took inspiration from the original 1962 Amazing Fantasy number 15 comic, where a radioactive spider accidentally bites Peter at a science exhibit. But instead of radiation, a dated concept, the movie modernizes the event with genetics, echoing real-world discussions about DNA editing and biotech. This spider is more than just a plot device. It symbolizes Peter's transition from boy to hero. And in many ways, it sets the gold standard for spider origin storytelling. A freak accident, an unassuming teenager, and a life forever changed. 10 years later, Andrew Garfield rebooted with The Amazing Spider-Man, but with a more complex, layered twist. This time, Peter's powers weren't so random. In Mark Webb's universe, the spider is the result of an advanced cross-species genetics experiment at Oscorp. But here's where it gets personal. The project was co-developed by none other than Peter's father, Richard Parker. The spider, officially named Arachnids oscorpius, is not just genetically modified. It's encoded with Richard Parker's own DNA. What does that mean? Well, this spider wouldn't pass powers to just anyone. It was designed to work specifically with Peter's genetic structure. In other words, only someone related to Richard could survive the bite and gain powers. This adds an entirely new layer to the Spider-Man mythos. It wasn't fate, it was family. Peter stumbles into the spider chamber while snooping around Oscorp's restricted areas. A rogue spider descends from the ceiling, bites him on the neck, and his transformation begins. Unlike Raimi's Peter, this version doesn't develop organic webs. Instead, Peter designs mechanical web shooters, using the industrial biocables Oscorp was developing from the same spider species. These cables are incredibly strong and flexible, mimicking real spider silk but built for large-scale infrastructure. Peter essentially reverse-engineers his powers from the tools created in the same lab that changed him. This story pays homage to the Ultimate Spider-Man comic series, where Oscorp creates the spider that eventually bites Peter. It's more grounded in corporate intrigue, family secrets, and scientific legacy, a perfect fit for the darker, more emotional tone of Garfield's Spider-Man. Now this one's a mystery, and probably the biggest spider-shaped question mark in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've seen Tom Holland swing through 6 MCU films, but one thing's been noticeably absent: the bite. Unlike previous iterations, the MCU never shows Peter Parker being bitten. No laboratory, no spider cage, no glowing venom. It's just already happened. When we meet Holland's Peter in Captain America: Civil War, he's already climbing walls and designing web shooters in a cramped Queens apartment. Tony Stark even jokes about it.
Can you even see in these?
Yes, I can't. Look, I can't.
Confirming that Peter's been active as Spider-Man for some time, but we never learn where the powers came from. What we do know is that Oscorp doesn't exist in the MCU, which rules out the Raimi and Webb-style spider experiments. That opens the door to other theories. Could the spider have come from Stark Industries? Was it part of a classified project gone wrong? Or maybe even an accident linked to Wakandan tech or the multiverse itself? Some fans speculate the MCU's spider was the result of a Stark-funded experiment in bioenhancement. a kind of super soldier program, minus the serum. Others think it may have been tied to PIM particles or vibranium research, suggesting Peter's powers are the product of a post-Avengers world where science regularly breaks the laws of physics. What we do know is that Peter doesn't have organic webs. Just like the Garfield version, he builds mechanical shooters. That implies he has the classic powers: super strength, agility, reflexes, and spider sense, but none of the Raimi-style wrist spinnerets. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the MCU intentionally skipped the origin to avoid rehashing the same story. Maybe it wanted to say, the how doesn't matter, the who does. It's not about the spider. It's about the kid who got bitten and what he chose to do with the power. Before Hollywood blockbusters, multiverses, and billion-dollar franchises, there was a simpler Spider-Man, one that crawled onto TV screens in bell-bottoms and a nylon suit. In 1977, CBS aired The Amazing Spider-Man, starring Nicholas Hammond, and it came with a spider origin that's often overlooked, but surprisingly faithful to the comics. Unlike the genetically engineered super spiders of the 2000s, this version keeps things old school. Peter Parker is already a college student and a science whiz. During a radiation experiment in his own lab, he accidentally exposes a spider to radioactive energy. The spider glows, crawls up his arm, and delivers the iconic bite. No corporate conspiracy, no interdimensional accident, just Peter Parker, a glowing spider, and a bit of good old-fashioned comic book science. The transformation is low budget by today's standards, but it hits all the major beats. Peter gains enhanced agility, the ability to climb walls, and super strength. Most interestingly, he invents his own web shooters and fluid, which are worn externally on his belt and triggered from his palms. No organic webbing here, just pure DIY tech from a guy who's clearly as smart as he is strong. The tone of this Spider-Man was very grounded, less superhero spectacle and more detective work. He fought corrupt businessmen and common crooks more than supervillains. There were no Green Goblins or Electro. It was more like Spider-Man meets Columbo. Still, the show played a crucial role in shaping how audiences perceived Spider-Man as a character. It leaned into his intelligence, his awkwardness, and his sense of responsibility, even if the web effects looked like a garden hose taped to his wrist. From a storytelling perspective, this version sticks closest to the original 1962 comic origin, a radioactive spider, not genetically modified, not mystically enhanced, just radioactive, a product of Cold War-era fears and atomic age curiosity. And while the series only lasted 2 seasons, it paved the way for Spider-Man's future on screen. It showed that people wanted to see Peter Parker in live action, that audiences connected with a young man navigating adulthood, loss, and power, even if the suit didn't fit quite right. It's easy to laugh at the effects now, but this spider, and this version of Peter, captured something raw and relatable. He wasn't slick, he wasn't chosen. He was just a student who made a mistake in a lab and then tried to fix the world with the hands he was given. Now this is where things get wild. In 1978, Japan reimagined Spider-Man like never before. Forget radioactive spiders and science experiments. This version involved aliens, ancient prophecies, and a giant robot named Leopardon. Say hello to Takuya Yamashiro, the Japanese Spider-Man. Produced by Toei Company in collaboration with Marvel, this version of Spider-Man was part superhero, part tokusatsu warrior. Think Power Rangers meets Arachnid Avenger. The story begins not in a lab, but in space. Takuya is a young motocross racer whose life changes when he encounters a dying alien named Garia, the last survivor of Planet Spider. Garia injects Takuya with a mysterious substance using a bracelet-mounted spider extractor, a device that pierces his skin and delivers an alien spider serum directly into his bloodstream. This isn't just a spider bite. It's a deliberate act of legacy, a passing of the torch to Earth's new protector. Takuya is instantly healed of his injuries and transformed with spider-like reflexes, wall-crawling powers, enhanced strength, and even a telepathic spider sense. But that's not all. He's also given a transforming spacecraft that turns into the towering battle robot Leopardon, used to fight off massive monsters sent by the evil Iron Cross army. Yes, You heard that right. Spider-Man pilots a Gundam. Eventually, Garia, the alien who granted him his powers, dies, but not before transforming into an actual spider, continuing to mentor Takuya through a kind of spiritual connection. It's less science, more mysticism, and 100% unique to this version of the character. This Spider-Man doesn't fight Doc Ock or the Green Goblin. Instead, he battles otherworldly beasts and demonic villains in a post-apocalyptic style setting. The tone is campy, dramatic, and endlessly entertaining. And yet, somehow, it still captures the essence of Spider-Man, the personal responsibility, the loneliness of power, and the fight for justice. At first glance, this adaptation feels totally disconnected from the core Spider-Man mythology. But believe it or not, Japanese Spider-Man played a major role in the future of superhero media. His use of a giant robot to fight villains inspired the entire Super Sentai franchise, which eventually became Power Rangers. Without this version, there might never have been a Megazord, or even the modern era of team-based superhero shows. In 2018, the Spider-Verse exploded with color, sound, and heart, and right at the center of it was a kid from Brooklyn, Miles Morales. But what made Miles different wasn't just his personality, his background, or his shoes, it was the spider that bit him. Unlike Peter Parker, who was usually bitten by lab spiders in controlled environments, Miles is bitten in one of the most un-Spider-Man settings imaginable, an abandoned subway tunnel, while spray-painting graffiti with his Uncle Aaron. It's there, underground, that a glitching, multicolored spider labeled number 42 descends from a wall and sinks its fangs into his hand. But this isn't just any spider. It's a bioengineered, dimension-hopping arachnid from the company Alchemax, a powerful corporation known for illegal experiments in the comics, and even more so in Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse. This spider had crossed universes, brought in by the Kingpin's collider, and it wasn't even supposed to be in Miles's reality. That's important. The bite wasn't fate. It was an accident of the multiverse. And yet, it set off a chain reaction that would change everything. What makes the Alchemax spider truly unique is that it doesn't just replicate Peter's powers, it enhances them. In addition to the classic wall-crawling super strength and spider sense, Miles gains two new abilities: camouflage, allowing him to go completely invisible, and the Venom Blast, a bioelectric shock that can incapacitate enemies instantly. These powers reflect Miles's story. He's constantly navigating visibility and identity, hiding who he is, while trying to live up to the symbol of someone else. His spider is quite literally different. It empowers him to be more than a copy of Peter Parker. The number 42 isn't just a serial label, it's a deliberate reference. In real life, it's a nod to Jackie Robinson, the first black player in Major League Baseball. In the comics and films, it subtly reinforces the weight of Miles's journey, stepping into a role not originally designed for him, and owning it. The spider glitching when it appears and disappearing after the bite is another symbolic touch. It's out of place, just like Miles feels at the beginning of the story. But that moment of confusion turns into transformation. That's every major radioactive spider, explained, well, almost. I skipped a deeper dive on 5 wild ones: Spider-Gwen, Spider-Noir, Penny Parker, Spider-Ham, and Spider-Man 2099. If you want a full breakdown of those, let me know in the comments, and I'll make a follow-up video just for them. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and tell me, which spider origin was your favorite or the weirdest? Thanks for watching. And remember, anyone can wear the mask.